a stable may look harmonious and work like a well-oiled machine in the ring, things are not always rosy behind the curtain. In an ego-driven business like professional wrestling, egos are bound to get in the way, and personalities often clash when 3 or more performers are asked to coexist. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 pro wrestling stablemates who hated each other. Join us. Number 10, Juventud Guerrera and the rest of the Mexicools. The Mexicools, that's Juventud Guerrera, Psychosis and Super Crazy, were signed and sent to SmackDown in the summer of 2005 to help freshen up the Blue brand's stagnant cruiserweight division. It didn't take Juventud long to win the cruiserweight title or alienate his colleagues, including his fellow luchadors. The Juice's ego is legendary, and though he was quite obviously a mid-card act that WWE really didn't devote that much time or effort to, Guerrera believed that he should have been pushed like The Rock. This, coupled with him showing up late, being unreliable, and having a generally bad attitude, led to Psychosis and Super Crazy distancing themselves from Juvi, who at one point was so isolated that the only person who would ride with him was the laid-back Cowboy Bob Orton. Crazy and Psychosis, the latter of which had had a tenuous relationship with Guerrera for years, actually went to WWE management and asked to be split from him out of fear that they may lose their jobs due to being guilty by association. Guerrera himself was released shortly after, causing one headache too many. His partners in crime were hardly sad to see him go. Number 9, Kevin and Lance Von Erich. Thanks to the Iron Claw film, many are now familiar with the tragic tale of the Von Erich family. One subplot that was dropped from the movie, however, was the saga of Lance Von Erich, played by MJF in a blink-and-you'll-miss-it cameo. Back in mid-80s world-class championship wrestling, Lance Von Erich was played by aspiring grappler William Kevin Vaughn, a bodybuilding champion who had been discovered on a golf course. Fritz's kayfabe nephew had been brought into the territory to wrestle in place of Mike Von Erich, who had been diagnosed with toxic shock syndrome. The rest of the Von Erichs were against the idea, since it would mean lying to and breaking the trust of their rabid fans, but Fritz persisted until Vaughn eventually left World Class over money issues. Kevin was the most vocal naysayer at the time and continued to bury Lance for a perceived lack of passion and ability for years afterwards in interviews. The feelings thawed, and Kevin did eventually reach out to his phony sibling via email, essentially thanking him for helping the family out when he did, while apologizing for the heat and wishing him the best for the future. Number 8, Rick Rude and Shawn Michaels. While many fans, and often WWE themselves, point to the trio of Shawn Michaels, Triple H and Chyna as being the original D-Generation X, it's certainly worth remembering that Rick Rude was also in the mix at the beginning as DX's insurance policy. Ravishing Rick's stoic suit and tie style was noticeably at odds with the other members' approach, and it wasn't just in front of the camera that Roode and Michaels had their differences. There's plenty of rumor and innuendo that suggests Roode wasn't a fan of being around the Heartbreak Kid at the time. Michaels has also made no secret of the fact that he was a bit of a, how shall we say this, massive prick in those days, with half the locker room ready to wring his cocky little neck. It's no stretch to imagine that Roode was one of them, especially given his close friendship with staunch anti-HBK lobbyist Bret Hart. Indeed, Roode was so incensed over the Montreal screwjob that he decided to jump to WCW, famously appearing on both a taped Raw and a live Nitro on the same night. When appearing on Nitro, Roode made sure to throw a couple of barbs at Michaels during his worked shoot promo. Number 7, Santana and Ortiz. Santana and Ortiz may be best known as the Proud and Powerful tag team, but they also have a history of being in factions together. In TNA, they were members of the rebooted LAX, while in AEW, they were part of Chris Jericho's Inner Circle. It was while riding the coattails of Le Champion that Santana and Ortiz seemingly started to have issues with one another, and things only got worse from there. The beef between them got so bad that, according to mutual friend Conan, there was almost a fight between Santana and Eddie Kingston about it after Blood and Guts 2022. Not only were there hinted at professional disagreements over whether to remain a team or pursue singles career, but Santana admitted that there were a lot of personal issues between the pair as well. Reality was ultimately incorporated into fantasy, with Proud and Powerful breaking up and feuding with each other, which ended with Ortiz beating Santana in a no DQ match that proved to be Santana's AEW swan song. Despite their personal issues, both men agreed to be professionals and work together for the sake of business. That said, it does look as if their days as a tag team are very much over, at least for now. Number 6, The Good Father and Steven Richards. It was actually something of a stroke of genius to take sponsor-unfriendly characters like Val Venus and The Godfather, have them renounce their deviant ways, and join moral crusaders The Right to Censor in the fight against filth. Though Charles Wright's playful pimp may have become the good father, the man himself was genuinely very upset at the gimmick change and even threatened to quit the company at one point. According to Wright, he took his frustrations out on RTC's White Sox-wearing leader Steven Richards, going so far to admit that he bullied the former ECW star despite the fact that he knew his own plight had nothing to do with Richards personally. Realizing his role in the backstage pecking order, Richards didn't give as good as he got and mostly just took the abuse, which extended to Wright's clique, the BSK. Stevie wasn't happy about it, obviously, and spent the Right to Censor run depressed and bitter at the way that he was being treated, while also having no real clue as to why it was happening to him. Richards has since said that while he now understands where the WWE Hall of Famer was coming from, it still wasn't right. Number 5, Stevie Richards and Raven. Of course, poor Stevie Richards had experience when it came to being in a stable where one of the members had it in for him. Years prior to his WWE run, Richards was a member of Raven's Nest in ECW and then Raven's Flock in WCW. Things got off to a frosty start when an enthusiastic Richards introduced himself and vowed to work hard and do his best in the role, only for Raven to blow him off. Richards realised rather quickly that the stable's leader was, in his own words, a jerk-off. He wanted the more experienced Scott Levy to be a mentor and help with his career, but Raven was not interested in that, and to be fair, had his own issues to deal with of the substance abuse variety. Stevie was Raven's lackey, not just in the storyline, but also on the road, and would do things like drive him around and carry his bags in the hope of learning about the business. Didn't really work out as he would have liked, with Raven continuing to browbeat and throw Richards under the bus at every opportunity, making Stevie miserable. Their relationship was, thankfully, a lot better when their paths crossed later in TNA. Number 4, Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. You may assume that being big, tall, beardy blokes that love professional wrestling might help two people become fast friends. But according to Wyatt family members Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, they were not kindred spirits and spent a long time resentful of one another. Per Harper, he didn't appreciate that they were forced to room together on the road, citing Rowan's intense snoring as the source of many restless nights. Rowan confirmed that he too did not like his stablemate and noted that they frequently butted heads backstage. Not literally, things never quite turned physical, although it may have threatened to on occasion. However, over time they became closer, with Bray Wyatt's calming presence helping to ease tensions and get them back on track when things came to the boil. Toward the end of the Wyatt family's run and before they successfully partnered as the Bludgeon Brothers, Harper and Rowan came to the realization that they would always be stuck together and decided to make the best of it, eventually becoming genuinely close friends. Number 3, Paul Roma and the rest of the Horsemen. On WWE's 4 Horsemen DVD profile, there are 2 minutes dedicated to completely burying Paul Roma, who joined the illustrious group in 1993. A host of talking heads deride Roma as the worst horseman ever, a sentiment that is echoed by founding members Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. Slick Rick and Double A criticised Roma's lack of star power and charisma, concluding that he should have never been given the opportunity to throw up the famous 4 fingers. Well, Roma himself has, on numerous occasions since, thrown up 1 finger, the naughty middle one, at his former teammates. According to Roma, Flair was jealous of him because he was younger and had a better body, meaning he stole away some of Slick Rick's spotlight in the nightclub. With regards to the Enforcer, who called Roma nothing more than a glorified gym rat, the former WCW Tag Team Champion likened his physique to the Pillsbury Doughboy. He has been especially critical of Flair Mind, going so far as to, in as many words, challenge him to a fight. I mean, I get your frustrations, Paul, but assaulting a 75-year-old pisshead isn't the solution here. Number 2, Bobby Heenan and the Red Rooster. Bobby Heenan was such a great and accomplished manager that by the time he was in full flow in the mid to late 80s, he could just about get anybody over. Just about. The Brain had a loose group of wrestlers he called the Heenan family. Though they may have not been a stable in the traditional sense, members did occasionally team up and were linked by their connection with the brilliant Bobby. Among the future Hall of Famers he managed, however, there was a notable outlier in the feathery form of the Red Rooster. In the storyline, Heenan was determined to take the clueless clucker from the bottom to the top, or at least the middle, but behind the scenes, the Brain did not like being paired with Terry Taylor. In his book and in shoot interviews, Heenan derided the Red Rooster character, join the Q-Mates, which he called an embarrassment while also offering a less than flattering assessment of Taylor as a performer. He also claimed that Taylor lied to him over trivial things when the two later worked together in World Championship Wrestling. Taylor, for his part, never fully hit back at Heenan, but admitted his relationship with the Brain was strained. Number 1, Farooq and Ahmed Johnson. Once pegged as a potential future world champion, Ahmed Johnson torpedoed his own pro wrestling career due to being an injury-prone heat magnet. Many who shared a locker room with the Pearl River powerhouse during the 90s have attested to his arrogant demeanor and penchant for rubbing people the wrong way. One of those people was Ron Simmons. The tension between the two carried over into the ring, with both men working noticeably stiff in matches together. According to Ahmed, Simmons gave him a hard kick to the midsection during a run-in one time, which led to Johnson needing to take a few months off to recuperate. From Ahmed's account, he got his receipt when they clashed in a 6-man street fight at WrestleMania 13, the bad blood persisting as Johnson was added to the Nation of Domination. That addition didn't last, but Ahmed and Farooq's dislike for each other certainly did, and they continued warring in the months that followed, which included another Simmons-administered beating at a Madison Square Garden house show. Johnson didn't last long after that, with much of the locker room happy to see him go. Especially Ron. He was damn happy to see him go.